In 1991, Madrid, we meet Veronica, a typical 15-year-old girl. She's responsible, taking care of her younger siblings, Lucia, Irene, and Antonito, while their single mother works long hours at a local bar. Life for Veronica seems pretty normal. She goes to a Catholic school, has friends, and tries to keep everything together at home. But beneath this normalcy is an emptiness. Veronica is struggling to cope with the recent death of her father, and the grief is heavy on her mind. Her sadness is a weight she carries alone, trying to protect her siblings from her pain. One day, during a solar eclipse, a moment when the world itself seems off balance, Veronica and her two friends, Rosa and Diana, sneak away to perform a séance using a Ouija board. Veronica wants to contact her late father, hoping for some kind of closure or sign from beyond. They meet in the basement of their school, a dimly lit, almost forgotten room. The excitement of the game is intoxicating at first, as they begin to ask the board questions. The mood quickly shifts, however, when Veronica becomes eerily entranced by the board, seemingly controlled by an unseen force. Her hands tremble on the planchette, and suddenly, the glass they're using as a pointer shatters, cutting her hand. At that moment, the eclipse fully blocks the sun, plunging the room into a strange darkness. Veronica loses consciousness, collapsing in a way that suggests she's been taken by something dark and mysterious. Her friends, terrified, wake her. But something is wrong. Veronica feels it. From that moment, the connection with the other side is forged, and something has crossed over into her world. Back at home, the atmosphere feels different. It's as if something invisible is watching her. Unexplainable things start happening. At night, she hears strange noises. Objects in the apartment shift slightly when no one is looking. She brushes it off at first, but these small disturbances grow into something much more sinister. The strange occurrences escalate. Veronica begins to see shadowy figures lurking in the corners of her vision. They seem to move when she's not looking directly at them, vanishing the moment she tries to focus on them. Her siblings notice too. Antonito, the youngest, starts sleepwalking, mumbling in his sleep about the man in the hallway. The lights flicker, and cold drafts sweep through the apartment, even though the windows are shut tight. Veronica grows more desperate as these forces become more aggressive. Doors slam on their own. Unseen hands yank at her bed covers in the middle of the night. The shadowy figures that once haunted the corners of her vision are now standing in the center of her room, watching her. As fear tightens its grip on her, Veronica seeks help from the one person who might understand what's happening. At her school, there's an old blind nun known as Hermana Muerte, Sister Death, who has a reputation for knowing things about the supernatural. Veronica approaches her, explaining the terrifying events that have taken over her life. The nun, without hesitation, warns Veronica that she made a grave mistake by using the Ouija board during the eclipse. She tells Veronica that she opened a door to the spirit world, a door that's letting something dark into her life. "You didn't speak to your father," the nun tells her ominously. "What you brought back is something else, something that feeds on fear and despair." The nun advises Veronica to perform a ritual to close the door she opened, but warns her it won't be easy, and the spirit is not going to let go without a fight. Terrified but determined to protect her siblings, Veronica prepares for the ritual. She draws protective symbols, gathers the necessary materials, plans to use the Ouija board one last time to send the entity back. But the entity is more powerful than she imagined, and it's getting stronger, feeding off her fear. Every moment she hesitates, it grows closer, pushing her to the brink. That night, while their mother is away working late, Veronica sets up the ritual in their apartment. She tells her siblings to stay in one room and not to come out no matter what they hear. With candles flickering and shadows dancing on the walls, she begins the process, trying to close the door she opened. But the entity has no intention of leaving. The apartment becomes a battleground. Objects fly across the room, lights burst, and the very air seems charged with a malevolent energy. The dark figure, the one that had been watching her, fully reveals itself, towering over her, its presence overwhelming. In a panic, Veronica realizes she can't control it. The entity has latched onto her and won't let go. Her siblings, scared by the noises, rush into the room despite her warnings. The entity's attention shifts to them. Desperate to protect them, Veronica fights back with everything she has. The scene is chaotic, doors slamming, furniture shaking, and a palpable tension in the air as the entity tries to take control. In a final act of bravery, Veronica sacrifices herself to save her siblings. She grabs Antonito and pulls him away from the entity's grasp, but the strain is too much. The entity's force is too strong. Veronica collapses, and the apartment falls eerily silent. In the aftermath, the police arrive, summoned by a frantic phone call from Veronica herself, just moments before everything went dark. They find the apartment in disarray, the aftermath of an unseen battle, and Veronica's lifeless body on the floor. The police are baffled. There's no sign of an intruder, yet the evidence of something violent is clear. The film closes on a haunting note, revealing that this terrifying story was based on the real-life events of the Vallecas case, a paranormal investigation that remains unsolved to this day. The police investigation into the Vallecas case, which inspired the movie Veronica, remains one of Spain's most famous unsolved paranormal cases. Here's a detailed overview. In 1991, a 15-year-old girl named Estefanía Gutiérrez Lázaro, who the character Veronica is based on, died under mysterious circumstances after allegedly performing a séance using a Ouija board at school. The story suggests that Estefanía and her friends attempted to contact a deceased family member, and the séance was interrupted by a teacher, causing the Ouija board to break. After this, Estefanía reportedly began experiencing terrifying visions, hallucinations, and seizures. She would see dark figures and hear strange voices, claiming that something malevolent was haunting her. Her health deteriorated quickly, and she died in a hospital several months later, though the cause of death remained unclear, attributed to a sudden death under strange circumstances. Months after Estefania's death, her family, particularly her parents, reported increasingly bizarre and terrifying events happening in their home. These included unexplained noises, objects moving on their own, and shadowy apparitions. They reported furniture sliding across the floor, doors slamming shut without explanation, and loud bangs occurring throughout the night. One of the most frightening accounts was that the family saw a dark, shadowy figure moving through the house. In November 1992, the family was so terrified that they called the police, claiming their house was haunted. When officers arrived at the house, they found the family in a state of panic. According to official police reports, the officers themselves witnessed some of the strange occurrences, which is what makes the case so famous. The responding officer, Inspector José Pedro Negri, and his team documented what they experienced that night, which included unexplained loud noises. The officers reported hearing loud bangs that couldn't be traced to any source. They witnessed a heavy armoire door suddenly open on its own, even though no wind or external force seemed to cause it. The police noted strange scratches on a table and walls, which appeared as if made by unseen hands. Although not all officers reported seeing this, some accounts mention witnessing dark figures or fleeting shadows moving through the house. The police officers were so unnerved by what they saw that some of them refused to go back into the house. The case file from the incident remains one of the few documented police reports involving paranormal activity, as the officers had no explanation for the events they witnessed. Despite extensive investigations, no rational or scientific explanation was found for the events the police witnessed or the experiences of the Gutierrez family. Estefania's death was never conclusively linked to the paranormal, and her family's haunting experiences remained unexplained. Over time, the case became an urban legend, and to this day, it is considered one of the most credible and chilling paranormal cases in Spain. While skeptics suggest that the family's experiences could have been the result of psychological trauma, hallucinations, or natural causes, like structural issues in the house, the official police report, with the strange events witnessed by trained officers, adds a layer of mystery to the Vallecas case. This unsolved mystery is what gave rise to the inspiration behind Verónica, blending real-life supernatural experiences with cinematic horror.